Oh, you didn't think I'd be back, did you? Joke's on you, I am. And if you think I forgot about my little rhythm game tangent videos that I was supposed to upload about every other month or so, yeah, I did forget, and I have no shame in that. I've just been very busy with things. But in my last video, I discussed of how I played rhythm games during my high school era and how people thought and what their opinions were of it. In today's episode, we will be going over tournament discussion and also how to mentally prepare yourself for said tournament. Uh, well, where do I begin with this? Let's start at the very beginning. I can't really say that I have a lot of experience playing in tournaments since I've only played it about maybe five or six in my life. But I can say that I have accumulated enough knowledge as to how to actually prepare yourself for a tournament. And I honestly think, regardless of who says it, it really does not matter to me. But the hardest thing to prepare for a tournament is, of course, always staying relaxed. You would think, as, oh, well, maybe I had a healthy snack, I drank some electrolytes, I calmed myself beforehand, I did some deep breathing exercises. Surely that'll be enough, right? When you step up onto the daily hard pad, all of that goes away because you're sort of accumulating this sense of adrenaline that, wow, there's so many people are watching you playing the game that you love, but yet also you get to show off yourself really and get to showcase yourself as to how much knowledge you really know of the game, which is always the fun part. And I always love the way that people express themselves before they actually, well, perform their said matches of songs. Um, in my personal experience, I think the one that I've had to say was the most exhilarating was, I'm probably going to be slightly biased saying this, but Whiteout 2. And the reason being is because I genuinely did not know what to expect in this tournament whatsoever, regardless of the fact that I studied for maybe like months before it was even planned. And even during in the process of doing training, most of the training that I've done for Whiteout 2 was actually at home because I was also still at the time where I was in high school. Well, coming close to my end of my senior year, I was in my senior year of high school. And the only way that I was actually able to consistently play before Whiteout 2 happened was just doing independent YouTube study, doing index study, and or maybe on some rare occasions I would have gone to Arcade Legacy, which is a local place that's near me, a local arcade place that, well, arcade that's near me, that allowed me to actually practice the song list before Whiteout happened. And the day of the tournament, I was also doing, maybe I would think I was about maybe doing about an hour and 30 minutes or 2 hours of extra charts studying before I actually left out of my house to go to round one. And I couldn't just stop thinking to myself, it's just like, this is the big day that's happening. And I really wanted to show everyone that I knew all of these charts before actually entering Whiteout. I didn't want any chart to be any type of surprise. And I didn't want it to feel like, oh, well, I didn't want this to match to be an absolute blowout either. But I think honestly, even with Whiteout 2 itself, I think the hard part was just managing my amount of stress that I was also feeling during my matches because there was a little bit of things that were going on with I'm not really sure if I want to get into too much detail of it, but let's just say it has some sort of relations to family matter. And it was being brought back to my attention about every hour or 2 hours or so during my matches at Whiteout. And I wasn't really sure of how to feel about it. I didn't really know if I should have just continued playing because I didn't really want to let anybody that was watching me there down. So I just had to give them the show that I just had to give them the show that I promised or that I said I would do, to be more specific. And I think I honestly did, even with, of course, I'm going to be biased saying this again, even with the win after Whiteout 2, I honestly still think that there are some things I could have done better. I mean, but yet again, you play in tournaments for a reason to understand as to how much consistency you've built within the game itself. So it's sort of just a test of mental fortitude. It's just, has the training I've done enough consistent enough for me to make myself believe that I've actually know this song enough, and do I know the chart well enough? But I think even after my win, there was still some things that I was being harshly judgmental about myself, because it was just like, oh, well, I didn't do good on exhibit A, and why didn't that go the way I wanted it to? Because almost 9 times out of 10, when you are playing in a tournament, it's never, you really can never know what to expect. I mean, you can really have studied something even days, weeks, months beforehand, and yet when tournament day arrives, it can just sort of just, what did I just play for like the past few weeks? Everything that you learn can just get completely tossed out the window. And I honestly think the best way as to actually maintaining that is to sort of do some self to do a lot of well, obviously do some self stretching before every song, but also just sort of close your eye. I sort of always like to close my eyes for a minute and just imagine myself actually playing this song as I would during a normal session. And I think that helps me in most cases. In some other instances, it normally doesn't work because, well, if it's something that is a little bit more harder than my caliber, then obviously it's going to be hard to expect, and it's obviously going to be hard to expect as to, oh, well, can I raise this score or how much better can I do? But you honestly still have to remember that at the end of the day, even if you don't really do well on a said song during in a tournament, no one's really going to judge you for it. And that's what I really love about the DDR community itself. Well, specifically, I want to give a shout out to the FFC crew, the Fairfield Commons Round 1 crew, because I genuinely don't know what I would do with what I did without them. I probably wouldn't be playing DDR as much as I am now if it weren't for those group of people, because it doesn't really matter as to how skilled or how great of a player you are. Everyone always treats each other equally, regardless of level, and that's what I've always loved about them. Shout out to the FFC crew. Um, but the studying part, for the studying consistency within a tournament itself, I think it's always, how should I put this? I want Okay, let me give an example. So, if my specific pool consists of studying for 16 through 18s or 15 through 17s, or depending on the tournament itself, I take one specific chart out of each level that could be possibly played within the pool one by one. And I just sort of give either mental notes or actually, if I have them, they should be around here somewhere, but I keep lots of sticky notes. I physically write down notes as to what I should be mindful of when I actually do play the chart in attorney, such as, oh, where, an example of this. Does the sync change happen at A and does it change later throughout at some random part at B? Or be mindful at a of a specific crossover that would appear before it actually arrives. For example, what's a good one to use? I'm just gonna say it. For example, like Hoshikuzu, Hoshikuzu Yonohate, the 15 from DDR H2O Plus. The specific middle section sort of just has these little random crossover burst patterns, and I always remind myself. I even actually have the little note of it still written on my phone. Is that the specific pattern? The first pattern of the crossover burst starts on the right and then transitions over to the left, so that way I don't actually ever forget as to where it starts. Because the times that I actually did practice this on Index 2, most of the times to where I would actually bleed a lot of random straight perfects would be directly before that crossover burst section or after. And I would always practice those parts consistently until I actually felt more comfortable with them. Now, if it's something for harder songs, I kind of just have to tell myself don't lean into rushing patterns so much because it's not my natural tendency for actually playing some harder stuff is that I occasionally rush with using my right foot. I'm not sure if it's extremely noticeable in videos, but it happens on some occasions. But specifically when I was playing what song was it during Whiteout 2? Oh yeah, Beachside Bunny, Shakunetsu Beachside Bunny Expert. Specifically going towards the ending portion of Beachside Bunny, I was rushing a lot because, well, not only specifically that I was also mentally exhausted, I just also did not have the opportunity to play much of sets before my matches actually started. I was primarily hanging out with people that were within the area. And so I did this purposefully so that way, one, I wouldn't be sitting down, and two, I wouldn't be cold because I wanted to keep myself actively warm. And the other thing I would also say that's extremely important before the tournament arrives, is also to always eat something, no matter how light it is. It can be a granola bar, an orange, banana. Even if it's something small as blueberries, I would say take it and eat it anyway. Because if you kind of go playing within a DDR tournament kind of on an empty stomach, it's not gonna go the way that you want it to. Well, I think I'm also being a little bit I think I'm also contradicting myself a little bit when I say that because on the day of Whiteout 2, I actually did not eat much of breakfast at all. I just took a granola bar and I had a protein shake with me and I just called it that morning. I didn't want to eat too much before I actually had my sets. And I even after Whiteout 2, I didn't even eat much. I went directly to bed because I didn't get back until 3:14 in the morning. I was coming off on the highway on I-75, and I genuinely was not in the mood to even pick up anything to eat. Well, it wouldn't have done me any good to try to look for to try to go out to get something to eat because it was one past midnight, two, most of the places that were around me that were close to me that I could have eaten were all closed. So I decided, yeah, I'm just gonna go to bed and call it a day. But I genuinely think the number one most important thing to do to prepare for a tournament is to never doubt yourself. And again, I'm going to be a little bit of a I'm going to be a little bit contradictory when saying this because I have a little bit of a tendency to where I down myself and I would think I don't necessarily know as to what I may be doing, but almost 9 times out of 10 I somehow misjudge myself. And it's because I wouldn't say I'm not a competitive person. Well, from a standpoint, I'm competitive. I'm competitive to an extent. Because I'm competitive in the way that I like to be sure that I always treat opponents fairly and make sure I always give them the match that they want with me. And I don't sound like a sore loser at the end of it because no one is going to really want to play with you again if that's the motif that you're trying to give. If that's the motif that you give them. And so I always just have the tendency that whenever I always finish a match with someone out, I just sort of just end it off with a smile in the best way that I can, no matter the circumstance, win or lose. So I think that dives a little bit into my detail of tournament discussion. I think now I will be passing my segment off to a certain someone that you all may know and love. And for what he does, he is an incredibly great guy and also really, really talented DDR player. And so I wanted you all to have a little bit of insight from him as to as to what he may think of tournament. Duncan, I will be passing this off to you.
Hey, Peyton. Thank you for thinking of me for this DDR Talkwise episode. And I know you wanted me to share a little bit about my tournament prep and mental process for tournaments. So I think of it kind of in two parts. There is the time before the tournament where I want to make sure that I am thinking pretty deeply about the format, about the different players that I could be up against, and also about the potential songs that you will see. So, is this an A20 tournament, an A3 tournament world? Do they have a predetermined set list that is a manageable amount that I can reasonably go through and play every song? I love when that happens, and maybe there's, I'm going to see 16s, 17s, 18s, and between them there's about 140 charts. And if I know that a couple months in advance, I can, over the course of those months, make sure that I played every chart at least once, and gives me an opportunity to mark down, was there something that surprised me in this chart that I need to be aware of, that when I haven't seen it in a little while will sneak up on me? Do I need to remind myself that the sync is a little bit different here, or that I struggle in a certain moment? For example, the song Sick has kind of a weird moment toward the end where I got flubbed every time that it came up and didn't do the crossover quite right. So when I saw that it was in a list and I played through the song, and I was like, ooh, that didn't feel quite right. I marked, where was that? It was around 500 notes. Remember to commit to the crossovers here, and they will resolve. Otherwise, you get confused in the double steps. So then when my card draws come out and I see the song Sick, like I did in TBD, I was like, oh, look, at step 520, commit to the crossover. And then I held that in my head during the event, and I remembered to do it, landed it, and it helped. So those kinds of things going through, looking at sync, do I need to adjust anything early or late, keeping those notes in like an Excel spreadsheet. Those are the kinds of things that can be really helpful in preparation, as well as looking at, like, do I know these competitors? Do I know what they're good at? Am I going to be playing somebody who's really good at jumpy 18s and I need to practice up on those in case something, like that kind of stuff. But ultimately, like, you don't want to play too much to your competitors. I think it's best to focus on what is going to make you succeed, except in a couple instances, which is that I think people often get scared of certain charts when they come up and need to be thinking about, what's the old adage about running away from a bear? Like, you don't need to be faster than the bear. You just need to be faster than the person next to you. And I think about that in terms of really hard charts. You don't need to be good at that chart. You just need to be better than the person next to you. And so people will often veto out the hardest things, but you might be doing your opponent a favor by vetoing the hardest thing. I had a match at the Big Deal where I had seen my opponent looking kind of tired, sitting down after his previous match, and then he was standing in the crowd watching other people. He wasn't moving around a lot, but he was still sweaty. And I was like, he's going to lock up. He looks tight. He looks tired. And then a really hard 18, Uni's Nocturnal Days, came up in our draw. I immediately protected it. I hadn't played the song in probably 3 months, and I think I've only played it like twice total. My score wasn't very good. I know it's a very hard 18, but I was like, his body's not going to be ready for it. And so I just knew, like, I'm warm, I'm hot, I'm coming off of a win, and so this is the right strategy for me in this moment. And it worked out really well, and he barely made it through the song. And I know he would be capable, probably better than me at that song on a given moment, but I just, you could tell in that moment that it was the best choice for me. So I think thinking about outrunning your opponent from that scary bear of a song when that comes up is an important thing to think about. And then also valuing your time between sets. What I just mentioned about seeing that player sitting down and then standing watching other people in the crowd and getting legs all locked up. If anybody has ever seen me at a tournament, I am constantly moving from start to finish. Like, I take it, I'm very easy and relaxed all throughout a weekend until, top 8 starts to come up. And then about 45 minutes to an hour before I go on, I start to warm up. And until I am knocked out of that tournament, I do not stand still. I make sure that I am always moving. If I feel like if I'm stopping sweating, maybe I have an hour between matches, I don't want to stop sweating. Like, that is when I think you've lost. So I will pull up the stream of whoever's playing, and I will grab a swivel chair off to the side and put in my headphones, and I will play along with whoever is playing currently out to myself in a quiet zone. I will find a crane game that I can hold on to and pretend it's a bar or anything. Like, I remember at Don Right, there was this little nook that I found outside of the main area of that Dave & Buster's, and I was able to find a railing by the catering section and set up my iPad to be like a stream layout and watch and play. Or before Mistake on the Lake, before the arcade opened, because I knew I was going to have to play early, I went and held onto the railing for the staircase to get up into the round one, and set up my backpack against a wall and placed my phone on it so that I could warm up and watch videos there, because it didn't open until 10. So I got there at 9:30 and started warming up early so that I'd be hot by the time it started. So it's these kinds of things. I think if you get too caught up in feeling tired and wanting to take breaks and watch the matches between you, then you can really easily get locked up. So I think one of the things that I do in order to stay focused and successful is making sure that once I start, I never stop. And I've kind of already gone over time with this, so I'll stop there. But thank you again for asking for this. It's a pleasure to send it in.